Hello? Okay. Hello? Am I clear?
Yes, please.
Good. I think we are talking about preparing people and culture for the next decade. And listening to my good friend Henry and the panelists, I am directed to think that specificity is not the way to go all through. What is critical and important is for us HR professionals to equip our people with competencies that are timeless, competencies that are global, competencies that are multicultural, so that we will be able to weather the storm of next decade. And I'm also thinking that the concept or the mantra that people are the greatest asset of organization is debased by the way things are going. It's not the right thing to think about. But we need to think about right people. Right people are our asset and not people in general. And when I say right people, I'm talking about people who have been equipped with competencies that are timeless, global, and multicultural. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that contribution, sir. I think Nana Puka is online. Madam Nana Puka.
I'm wondering if I can respond to the,
Okay.
The comment the gentleman, our associate, gave. I think you're right on the money in one respect. It's the right people. We always said at Newmont, our HR strategy is getting the right people in the right job at the right time, doing the work of the job. Absolutely right. I hate to exclude the people who are not right, though. So when I heard that, I thought, okay, so are we excluding people? Or are we doing what we need to do to have them be the right people? So that's one thing. And then the specificity. I think the specificity carries on to training our leaders to deal with the individual. Because if you have a team that's made up of different generations, then one size will not fit all. So you actually have to deal with the individual. And we learned that in a very hard lesson earlier this year. Individuals, so it's people, but it has to focus on the individual and what that person needs in terms of reward. Some people do want money, some people want acknowledgement, some people want time off. So we have to actually start to hone in on the different needs of the specific individual and train our leaders to be able to have the kind of conversations between me and you where I know how to reward you in a way that satisfies you. So I just wanted to add that to your comment.
Thank you for that contribution. Any more contributions? Any more questions? Okay, so I have a question. There's the comments that Mr. Baye passed about, if your office has been the same for the past 5 years, there's something wrong. I could sense in the atmosphere that a lot of us were in that category. As HR leaders, as HR practitioners, how can you make the case for changing something that may seem as unimportant as the workspace? Mr. Baye talked about how it's an investment, Sometimes all you need to do is you have a deadline, you have a project, you have to come in, do the work, go home. How can you make a business case? Earlier this year in one of our HR interactive sessions, Madam Stella Ajin, she was the speaker for our HR interactive, and she mentioned that for HR practitioners to be valuable to the organizations, they need to make a strategy case. They need to make a case and win over, the rest of the leadership. But in this case, when it's just a workspace, what can you work with? what can you take into such an argument, into such a, to make your arguments? How can you make your arguments in this case to improve just the workspace and like, I don't know if you get my question. Yes, if that question could be please answered for me.
Okay, if I can quickly react to that. So I think as HR colleagues, there are a couple of things that we hold dear and near to our hearts. And I would want to talk about the influence skills that we should be able to develop. And I'm saying this because it's not all the things that we have to deal with that we have full control over. There are some of the things that we may have control, those ones we need to deal with them. There are other things that we do not have control, they are equally important, but we will need to be able to find a way to influence the outcomes of those ones. And personally, that has worked for me in every organization that I've worked with. So if I have to deal with things that are directly within my control, those things that I can hold in my hand and feel proud to say, yes, I've grabbed the chicken, then yes, those ones I'll deal with it up front. But for those things that I think would be standing in the way or would be a difficult thing to deal with, I only need to find out how and who will be able to influence that and to deal with it. And like I said, this has worked for me in almost every organization that I've worked with. And especially, even after putting together a strategy document, how I need to be able to push this through is to be able to find out the possible persons who may be able to punch holes into my strategy and to manage them ahead of presenting it. When I do that, I get the input and ideas, suggestions, comments, which I can use to enhance the strategy document that I have. And then eventually, by the time I push it through, I would have all the possible questions answered, and it's going to be easier to get a buy-in of people along the way. So in brief, that's my reaction.
So let me just add to that. If one morning my head of HR, we call them head of people in our company, walks up to me and tells me he wants 1 million cedis to make the office a smart office, I can imagine my reaction. In these times when we are all struggling to make budget, you want to do what? I'm sure that's what I asked. You want to do what? But I think it depends on how you make the case. Initially, you will get a very hostile reaction. But a lot of leaders like me think in numbers. So if you can make a business case that shows that this is a gradual 2-3 year process, this is where I'm going with this, and this is how it will improve the numbers. If you can make a solid case, people will listen to you. But it has to be a solid case, I find that too many times the case that is made is not, there are no numbers to them. People are just making emotional arguments. But let's see where, because don't forget, we are all there to make money. Money is important. So when you break it down that way, you would always have a good year.
I think Daniel is pointing to one of the skills that HR actually needs to develop. So in addition to the influence and the collaboration that Kenneth pointed out, there's also being able to support your idea with a business case. It has taken me sometimes as long as 3 years to get an idea approved. But if you think it's the right idea, then you'll do the analysis, you'll do the business case, you'll go to the finance people, collaborate with them in doing the financial analysis. And when you present it to the people who need to approve, you've got the finance aspects, you've got the sustainability aspects, you've got the legal things covered. You've put together a solid business case that cannot be disputed. If you think it's the right thing to do, you'll do that amount of work ahead of time in order to be able to convince the CEO that this is something that you want to do. In addition to influencing and collaboration, those are so key to getting something passed. I also want to add that workplace is so important. I think the environment that people work in actually helps their productivity, their morale, and all of that kind of stuff. So, for 3 years, we were making our arguments to move the office. And, at some point, somebody will say yes, and we'll keep making the argument until they say yes.
Thank you very much. That answers the question. I have another question. I'm sorry. So as HR practitioners, how do you see it as a value when you look at workplace? Okay, for example, HR Focus Awards has a particular category where we're awarding the best for employee well-being and workplace design. As HR practitioners, I'm assuming that you have the facts and the figures. So can someone share? Because it seems like the workplace can affect numbers. How so? Is it just having to do with attitude, or it's actually having to do with productivity? So maybe not necessarily just a smart office, because maybe we don't have the resources to get all the gear and the equipment that we need to have a smart office. But I think what Mr. Baye mentioned was the fact that, your office space shouldn't look the same as it did 10 years ago. So it's not just necessarily about digitizing, but, change. Is there some data that HR practitioners are privy to about, the workspace and the design that would affect the well-being of employees? Anyone? None? There's a hand. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Daniel, and I'm from Vodafone. I don't have any data. I think such data is difficult to come by. But the discussions we're having, the concentration shouldn't be only on the workspace, as in the office. And I think most of us have mentioned that over a period of time, people have been working from home. Just as Vodafone, in the past 18 months, we've had people working from home. So when it comes to workspace, it is no longer the office. It is now people's homes. And we have realized that it's become blurry to understand whether people just wake up from bed, then they have a laptop, and then when they close from work, they go to bed. What are we going to do to ensure that employee well-being is a priority? So at Vodafone, we've started what we call a self-assessment, where people will have to assess whether working from home is actually what they want to do. Because somebody working from home could be sitting on his bed and working for 8 hours, for 10 hours. What that means is that this person, in 3 years' time, or in a year's time, is going to develop back problem. He's going to have an issue, which is going to be the cost of the business. So, although I don't have numbers, to answer that question, I would say well-being should be extremely important. It should be a priority. The reason for which employees were sent home in many organizations is because of well-being, to ensure that the people who are alive in the first place to do the work. So we need to assess employees and to understand whether a category of employees, it's right for them to work from home, or it is right for them to work from the office. So my contribution to this is, if we make well-being a priority, the issue of looking for 1 million cedis may not be necessary. It could be that all we have to do is to change people's benefits and make sure that you can give employees a certain amount every year so they can have an office at home. And when you do that, so for year one, you get them a table and a furniture. Instead of giving them fuel coupons, if your idea is to ensure that people are working remotely or partly remotely, you support that employee. It could be training. How do you sit and work? How do you adapt your dining hall such that you can work, so that your safety becomes a priority, not for just you, but for the business? So I know we are discussing culture. This could be an aspect of culture, putting well-being as number one and making sure that we are looking after employees as HR professionals to ensure that this new change that is coming, working remotely, is addressed first and foremost, not because of money, but because of employees and their well-being. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A round of applause. I think that's the time we have for the open forum if there are no questions and contributions. Okay, there's, on my way there, I will stop here.
Thank you very much. My name is Mary from Food and Drugs Authority. I'm very much interested in Mr. Henry's presentation. What got me excited, initially I thought that this new trend, a lot of people are going to lose jobs. But in his presentation, he said that 75 are going to lose jobs, I think maybe percentage, but 120 opportunities are going to be created. I would like him to throw more light on it and also give me the reference of where that data is coming from or the research that he has conducted, so that I'm scared that's why people are going to lose jobs, but he has assured us that people are not going to lose jobs. So I need clarification and strategies. That's the first point. The second question is on the question that one of our callers online about the academicians, that HR has to liaise with the academicians to get the curriculum of what they need so that when our young ones comes out from school, they will be useful. I wanted to also find out from the contributor, how would that be done? Is the HR leaders are going to do that? I mean, how? My question is how. And my third contribution is, I plead that the HR practitioners should also make available logistics and tools for employees to work with this modern trend of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Minister. So, Mr. Baye, like I said, he's currently on an island in Jersey. So, he's just still online, but he wouldn't be able to speak. So, what I'm thinking is he will type his response and then we will read it out.